Businessman, reality TV star, and now author Donald Trump Jr., the oldest son of President Trump, has a new book out called Triggered: How the Left Thrives on Hate and Wants to Silence Us. And he joins us now from New York. Good morning.
Good to be with you.
Thanks for joining us this morning. The first line of your book is, "I'm not mad." But you sound pretty mad, maybe tongue-in-cheek a little bit in there, but how mad are you?
Well, I think it is very tongue-in-cheek. I think, when you got to go through what I've been through, when you see what they've tried to do to my family, when you spent, for me alone, 2.5 years with half of Congress and the Senate trying to say you committed treason for taking an unsolicited phone call, but having no issue with Hillary Clinton paying forward operatives to dig up dirt, to leak to the FBI, to give to the media, to write a story, to then utilize to create FISA warrants to start the entire Mueller investigation hoax. You know what? I think I probably have every right to be a little upset about that. And so, there's only so much you can say in 140 characters or less on social media and in a 5-minute interview. So I said, you know what? Now's the time to write a book, because the American people have to see some of this nonsense. They have to see it in long form and explained in a way that you can't really do in a soundbite.
So who do you really want to read this book? Because you even say in a trigger warning there, do not read this book if you don't like conservative ideas. So who are these ideas for?
Well, listen, I think they're obviously for conservatives. They're for those who have to realize that, hey, we have to fight against some of this nonsense. But I'd love for the other side to read it as well. Maybe they'll learn something. Maybe they'll understand, what our side is actually talking about, because we do live in sort of a cancel culture, world of outrage. The woke movement, it's here one day, the next day the goalposts keep moving, and you can never be woke enough. So what's woke today is alt-right tomorrow. And so, I want people to see that there is a reasonable approach to some of these things. I think I cover that in a lot of the topics where I can say, hey, this is where I am, this is where the media takes it. And there's a point where we can say, hey, we can be live and let live. We can let people do what you want. But, there's got to be some reasonable to all of this. And so much of that reasonable has been just totally, eliminated from the system these days.
Are you trying to reach across party lines here, though, or are you trying to widen the divide here?
No, listen, I think I'm trying to reach across party lines to those who are willing to listen. The reality in Florida alone. I mean, I know I'm going to be in Tampa, on November 8th at the Villages, so your guys can come and listen to me speak there. But, I spoke in Florida a few weeks ago, and the left comes in there and they literally spend 45 minutes during a speech screaming, like, ah, to not even let you get your point across. So, that's what you're up against. I think people should be able to have that dialogue. I think if you read in there, there's plenty of things that I could take to some sort of extreme, but I'm trying to draw the distinction between that extreme and what's rational discourse. I'd love to get to a point where you have rational discourse, but we're not getting that back. Okay, we don't have a mainstream media that will cover my father fairly. They're not covering the successes, the unprecedented economic victories, the fact that he's doing things across party lines, not just for the base, like prison reform and opportunity zones. He's doing that thing, but you still get 95% negative coverage. You have the Washington Post that's willing to go out there and do an obituary on al-Baghdadi, the leader of ISIS, a guy that lit people on fire and filmed it, threw homosexuals off of buildings, and they call him an austere religious scholar, rather than saying, hey, this is a murdering piece of garbage and the world is better off that he's no longer in it. That's the filter that's pushing news through. I mean, that's what people are seeing. So someone needs to fight back. My father's shown conservatives that you can fight back, that you can push back, that you don't just have to roll over and die. But I think I can do that really effectively in the book, do it in an intelligible way, and, not just throwing bombs. You can do that on Twitter. It's a little bit easier in 140 characters or less, but really expand on what he's done as a president, what we've been up against, which is something that no president in history has ever faced. And he rose to the top anyway. He's still winning. He's still getting things done. But there's a lot left to do, and it'd be nice to see the Democrats do something for their constituency for once. How about vote on the USMCA? Do something. It's been sitting on Nancy Pelosi's desk. It'll pass bipartisan in 30 seconds, but she would rather not do anything that could be perceived as a win for Trump, even if it means great things for the American working class that he's fighting so hard for.
All right, Don, you talk a lot about Twitter here. Obviously, you talk about it in your book. You talk about censorship, too. You specifically mention it during the Mueller investigation, how you took to Twitter, certainly voicing your opinion there and coming on maybe too hot for even your dad. He actually warned you about your tweets. Have you ever warned him about his tweets?
Yeah. I've never had that conversation, obviously. No, listen, it was funny, and I'll listen to his advice on many things. I go, that was an interesting one. I said, maybe I learned it by watching you. Maybe the genes run strong on that one. But I think, the reality is this. Even my lawyer, you can't say that. the other side, you could be the nicest guy in the world, you could be as cooperative as you want, they'd give you zero credit. I mean, they spent 2.5 years trying to throw me in jail for taking an unsolicited phone call. Hillary, no problem, doesn't matter. She can delete 33,000 emails under subpoena, no problem. Hunter Biden can take money from Ukrainian oil companies. We won't even look at that. Profiting off of his father's taxpayer-funded office. Now when we, as business people who were international business people before my father got involved in office, when we just say we're not even doing new deals, we won't do new international deals.
Expanding deals,
you get
but
killed
no new
because
deals.
We're not doing new deals. We have a contractual obligation. If I start a deal in 2012, you can't stop building a building in the middle of it. It doesn't work that way, right? We have an obligation to those deals, but we're not doing any new deals. We didn't magically become international businessmen. We stopped being international businessmen doing new deals when my father took office. Hunter magically becomes an international business to make an $83,000 a month to sit on a board of a language he doesn't speak in a business he knows nothing about. If I did that, if Donald Trump Jr. did that today, the media would lose their minds. We'd actually solve the fake news media problem because their heads would explode, there'd be none left. There's a double standard that's so prolific that it needs to be pointed out. And again, there's only so much you can say in a couple minutes on an interview, but I get to expand on that in great detail in the book, and I think people will enjoy it.
So you talk about fake news here. Funny enough, here in Florida today, Citrus County, the commissioners there turned down a request from librarians. They wanted an online subscription to the New York Times. They were turned down because they sided with your father, saying it was fake news. Is that okay censorship to not provide that to the library?
Well, listen, I don't know about that. Again, I don't agree with censorship, but it does seem to be dominant from one side. I get that the mainstream media has long, they've always been left-leaning, but they've gotten rid of the pretense of objectivity today, whatever they can do to hurt Trump. So they'll talk about one story that it goes one way, but they won't talk about the millions of examples, whether it's what I talked about with al-Baghdadi or the New York Times literally fact-checking the meme about my father putting the Medal of Honor on a dog. That's the lens by which other people are looking through at things. So people have to be able to do that. They have to figure out how to get their own information. I think that's why social media has become so powerful, because you can't trust the mainstream media anymore.
But can we agree? Can we agree on the fact that they should be allowed to have that information, whatever information it is that they can sort through themselves?
I think people should be able to consume all. I think people should be able to consume all information, but I think that social media companies should also stop censoring flagrantly, anyone that has a conservative mindset and boosting that of the liberal mindset. I get into that in great lengths with numerous examples in the book about what actually happens. You've never heard one person from the left complaining about a social media company, shutting them out of their account, demonetizing them, deplatforming them, again, getting lockouts for liking a post of someone else's that's on the conservative side. It's a one-way street. I want to see freedom of speech. I want to see everyone be able to have everything, but that's not what we have today. You have a one-side bias that's so flagrant and extreme, and I hope that people realize that and see that in the book. And I hope those want to come out will come out on November 8th to the Barnes & Noble over by the Villages and see, and they can hear me say it for myself.
Now, we are here in Florida, in Tampa, not far from the Villages, as you just said, also not far from Mar-a-Lago, which is now your dad's primary residence, according to Twitter.
Yes, it is.
Do you have any reaction to that? Why say goodbye to New York? Is that a legitimate call on his part?
Why would you stay in a state? People are fleeing. You have local politicians, that are here going out and saying everything terrible about my father. Just go look on my social media account. I put on the videos of Chuck Schumer and all the things that he said before my father became a Republican president about my father. I have all the examples of Andrew Cuomo coming up to our office talking about the great history of our families together and then begging for money. Why would you go to a state that taxes you oppressively, is doing everything to destroy business? Millions, tens of thousands of people are legitimately fleeing every month, going to states that believe in actual freedom, that believe in the free markets, that believe in business. It seems like a sort of no-brainer. Why would you go and contribute to a place that does nothing but knock you? It doesn't make any sense to me, and I think it's totally the right call.
So that's his call there. Now, Americans right now, according to a Fox News poll just recently released, in terms of the impeachment inquiry, most Americans at this point, almost half, are saying that your father should be impeached and taken out of office. What's your response to that? Well,
in a +8 Democrat poll, you're right. I mean, listen, everyone knows it's a partisan This is a partisan deal. It has been from day one. I mean, this impeachment inquiry started on November 9th, 2016, when my father won. It wasn't the result that they wanted. We saw 2.5 years and $40 million spent on the Mueller hoax. That was a big fizzle. You know, Mr. Mueller, have you actually read the report that bears your name? He was used as a puppet to try to push the Democrat talking points. This is just a continuation of that. Nothing's changed. It's a little upsetting to see Fox News push a poll that's D+8, but that's the reality. We are a partisan world right now. Despite the results. And I think, though, if people really look down, if those people, the reasonable people in the middle, because you're never going to get that far left, but the reasonable people in the middle, look at the results, look at the economy, look at the unprecedented amount of new jobs created. That can all go away. In 2016, my father said, you know what do you have to lose? Back then, he was right. The establishment on both sides had failed America for a long time. What do you have to lose now? You have a lot to lose. It can all go away. When you look at these asinine policies of the left, when you look at Joe Biden doesn't know what state he's in half of the time, you're going to have that guy running the economy? Elizabeth Warren wants to put forth a tax plan, $52 trillion. That's 90% of what the U.S. revenue makes a year over 10 years, right? What about anything? What about funding a road? What about funding education? What about, these are not credible policies. But no one on the left
right
is
now
functioning
Biden is
as
leading
a
your
check
dad in the
against
polls.
these things.
So what does that say about Americans right now? Is that concerning to you?
Hillary was leading by 92% on election day last time. How'd that work out?
All right. We'll leave that
Don't
there.
believe the polls. People are suppressed. People are afraid of being called, terrible names by the left. They're not going to tell people what they actually think. We saw that last time. It's going to be no different this time.
Should we one day expect you to be putting your name in the hat?
No idea, no plans at all. My only goal is to help him get elected for 2020 because it's important. As the father of 5 young kids, I want them to grow up in an America that they recognize, and that's not what the other side is pushing right now. I think we owe that to our kids and our grandkids. We got to bring some common sense, which is the only thing that hasn't existed in D.C. for a long time until the Trump administration, and so we got to do that. So I'm fighting for 4 more years, and that's my only objective right now.
All right, you heard it here. Triggered, How the Left Thrives on Hate and Wants to Silence Us is available now. Thanks for joining us, Don.
Thank you.